Hello everybody, welcome back to Jubes & Co with me, Michelle Bastani and Matt Goodwin. I've started something now, telling you all about those pubs that I used to go to where people did used to come in about this time of year, offering up a variety of goods, including those big trays of Ferrero Rocher, among other things. And we were just asking Matt in the break, because he's never encountered anything like this apparently, and we were just asking Matt in the break, he must be familiar with the, in the olden days when those menus used to come in the pubs, do you remember, in those Macs, everyone? And they used to open up the Macs like this, and they used to have all those DVDs sewn into the lining of the jacket.
I have never, hang on a second, hey, check this out.
You've never encountered anything like that?
Never seen that in my life before.
Well, I don't think you've been born, quite frankly.
I did grow up in Hertfordshire. I think Hertfordshire is probably a little safer than, Hull.
We need to get you. Nothing wrong with Hull, I'll have you know.
I love Hull. I love Hull.
Mandy says, Michelle...
That's a party town.
Mandy said, Michelle, I once stopped two girls pushing a trolley of goods out. She said it had a value of over £1,400, and I got a warning from management because it was against the store rules. Gerald says, Michelle, my local charity shop a couple of years ago started getting shoplifting. They used to have two entrances to the shops, he said, but they've had to close one off now to try and make it a little bit more difficult for the thieves. And there will be some people at home watching this going, oh, Michelle, people steal because they're poor and they're struggling. Come off it. There's so much help and support and all the rest of it out for people. Dylan says, I used to work in a well-known supermarket and you was not allowed to confront shoplifters, he says. You just had to stand back, watch and report it to the police, but then he says that no action was taken. Now, speaking of action, the Tories have overtaken Labour in the polls. This is the first time since Boris Johnson was in office. Kemi Badenoch clearly doing something right, Matt Goodwin.
Well, I think there's certainly a growing pile of evidence to suggest that the Conservatives have stabilised, but the real story here is not really the Conservative Party recovering. It's more the Labour Party continuing to collapse. Now, we've seen, particularly after the budget, Labour plunging to new lows. We know Keir Starmer is the most unpopular Prime Minister that we've ever had. This is this is the most unpopular government we've ever had. So Labour are continuing to collapse in the polls. The Conservatives are basically stabilised. But this real story to me, Michelle, as we actually come to the end of 2025, is the implosion of this two-party system that we have had in this country for much of the last 100 years. If you look at the collapse in the combined vote share for Labour and the Tories, it has basically dropped by about 15 points since the start of the year. Now, the real beneficiaries there are Reform on the right and Greens on the left. So this two-party system that used to be predictable, stable and so on is actually imploding, and nobody knows where this is going to go. Nobody knows where this is going to end. It's truly historic stuff. What we're living through is really historic. The viewers can see it on the screen there.
And Bastani, your thoughts?
The Telegraph says that this is signs of a recovery under Kemi Badenoch's leadership, the fact that they're now averaging 18.5%, but of course the Tories got 24% in the last general election. No. So as anybody familiar with numbers will know, 18.5% is less than 24%. It's not a recovery. They're still going down. Just like you say, the performance isn't quite as bad as the Labour Party. I would add this as well. In 2017, the two major parties between them got 80% of the vote, a little bit over. Now they're going to get less, it seems, than 40% between them. Really historic. And the Tories got less than, are getting less than what they got in the last general election, which was their worst result for 200 years. That is bad news. I wouldn't celebrate that.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
What I'm really interested to know from some of you guys is, if you've never voted before, would you turn out and vote at the next election? Because that, for me, would be the most interesting thing. Who can galvanise those people that previously have not been into voting? Now, I'll tell you what I want to talk about to you as well tonight. The head of the Government Equalities Watchdog, the EHRC, has basically said that people need to stop describing immigrants as a risk to Britain. Mary Ann Stevenson, let's take a listen to her.
I think it's really important that we have honesty in the way that we talk about human rights, and that we also have a recognition that the demonisation of migrants, the creating this idea that migration causes, huge risks for the country, can make the lives not just of migrants to the UK, but of ethnic minority UK citizens very, very difficult.
Matt Goodwin, your thoughts?
Well, firstly, who is this person? We have unelected, unaccountable elites within our public institutions that have no real connection to the people who have to live with the consequences of these decisions, like mass uncontrolled immigration, lecturing the country on what they should think or believe about these issues. And the second thing is, have you noticed, Michelle, these people talk endlessly about the rights of illegal migrants. They talk endlessly about the rights of outsiders and foreigners. They never talk about the rights of the hard-working, law-abiding British people, including the many people watching the show. And what she said, which really, really stuck in my throat, is that it's wrong to describe mass immigration as a threat to the country. If this person, who claims that she is an expert, backed by the Labour government, by the way, was really reading the research, she would know immigration is a threat to our economy. It's hollowing out our economy. It's a net fiscal cost. We know this. Only last week, the Migration Advisory Committee gave us more evidence for that. It's a threat to our security. It's a threat to British women and girls who are being sexually abused and harassed by people who are being imported into our country, often from inferior third world cultures. It's a threat to our housing. We know that it's exacerbating the housing crisis. And to be blunt, it's a threat to our culture, because it is creating parallel societies with people who do not share our cultural values, who do not share our way of life. And we just had a very sound leader of this quango, Baroness Faulkner. She was much more reasonable on all of these issues. She basically was closer to where the British people are on these issues. I mean, this person, who Labour have put in clearly to try and project the Labour worldview, this sort of pro-immigration, pro-woke worldview, I think she's completely adrift with the rest of the country.
Aaron?
What she's describing is a matter of opinion. Somebody out there watching will think migration is a threat. They'll have agreed with every single word that Matt just said, and some people will disagree. But that's the point. It's a matter of private opinion, and then, of course, we express this at the ballot, and it's reflected by political parties and government. That shouldn't be the proviso of a quango, which cost the taxpayer £20 million a year. That lady herself is on £69,000 a year, I believe. And what Matt said at the start of that tirade, I couldn't agree more with him. No, I'm saying you were making a political point. But the very first thing you said was absolutely on the money. Who is she? Why does this organisation exist? It certainly isn't meant to police people's personal views on a particular policy. So £20 million, a lot of money, scrap it. When people say you can scrap big parts of the state, the bureaucratic administrative state, and save a lot of money and put it elsewhere, you're told, well, no, that's only £20 million. That's not a lot in terms of government spend. We're a £3 trillion economy. That's true. The reality is, however, there are hundreds of things like this. So I think the EHRC should go. I don't think it should exist. And I think it's a perfectly legitimate thing to say, look, we spend £5 billion a year on asylum in this country. It's a perfectly progressive thing to say, why can't we spend half that?
Goodness me, we actually agree on something out.
Well, no, but it's £5 billion is a lot of money. Why can't we spend a quarter of that? Still a lot of money, right? It's still more than £1 billion. I think if somebody expresses that point of view, that's not demonising anybody. I personally think you shouldn't demonise anybody, but that as a point of political view is not demonising anybody. So I would start with a very simple point, really, a simple premise, which is the EHRC really shouldn't exist, and I would get rid of it like I'd get rid of vast swathes of the post-97 bureaucratic state.
Well, that is what Nigel Farage should say briefly, which is he should come out and say, you know, a reform government would scrap the EHRC, would also, by the way, scrap the Equalities Act. And just very briefly, Michelle, the one thing that really sticks in my throat here is this person's supposed to be the expert. Now, you might say what I said was a tirade, but everything I said was backed up with evidence.
No, I'm not. I'm sorry.
We know from the Migration Advisory Committee, we know from serious research that's been done within this country, we know that actually immigration is problematic for a whole host of reasons. This is the person who's supposed to be reflecting that evidence and supposed to be in that balanced position. What she's done is she's come out on day one. She's basically had this case of verbal diarrhea. She's lost the country. Everybody can see she's being highly partisan. Everybody can see she's just been put in there by the Labour government to basically parrot the Labour pro-immigration viewpoint. And that is not what these organisations should be doing.
Can I clarify my point with Matt?
Yeah.
Even if immigration didn't cost the taxpayer money, if it was saving us money, even if it was a net beneficiary to GDP, even if it wasn't, as you say, a quote to our culture, even if none of the things you've said are true, you would still be entitled to say, I want less immigration to the country. That's my point.
Yes, sure.
So it shouldn't be contingent on whether or not it's good for the economy. That's an opinion that somebody's allowed to hold in a free, liberal society. And I find it just a massive example of sort of overstep that somebody who's meant to protect individual liberties, which is what the EHRC is meant to do, the first thing she does is actually police people's freedom of speech. What they can and can't say.
Am I being outflanked on the right by Navarra media? Is that what's happening here on this
show?
No,
but, you know, it's just, there are many of these. Well, the thing is, I would say we should spend more money on certain things, and you might disagree with that, but we have to be sensible. There's also some things we shouldn't be spending money on. The EHRC is one of them.
Well, there you go. You will have strong opinions on that one. One of my viewers has just got in touch and said, Michelle, can I just bring you back to that Tory polling? Kemi Badenoch is a fantastic orator. Her performance on Budget Day was sterling. This is where this Tory bounce comes from. I've got to tell you, I was actually very impressed with Kemi Badenoch in that little speech that you mentioned. Many people, of course, were saying that it was bullying what she did. Lots of you getting in touch about my shoplifting story. Chris says, get this is awful. He says, my late mother-in-law had her handbag stolen while she was in the church receiving the sacraments. God. Thieving, he says, does not get much lower than that. I completely agree with you. What is wrong with people? Honestly, I don't know.